I had some suicidal thoughts. And before I was able to admit this to myself, I had been wrestling with that. And that was one of the other things I was wrestling in therapy. And my therapist was just like, maybe accepting yourself is better than saying unaliving yourself. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's better. Maybe you existing is a good thing.
In order, before I ever knew what the word queer or, gender nonconformity, before I ever knew what those words were, I had to let go of the religious indoctrination because that was so deep that, we would be in church and be hearing homophobic messages from, the pastor and what have you.
Do you feel like that was another coming out story for you? Did you feel the need to kind of have this thing that we fell into about coming out and announcing it to the world? Or was it just an acceptance of self and then you began your next evolution from that point?
I mean, mine started off with crying, y'all. I'm that little gay kid that came from Texas that was sitting there afraid I'm gonna burn in hell for being this effeminate and loving men and starting to accept that. And it took so long to find peace in realizing that you people have no heaven or hell that you can throw me in. You have no heaven or hell you can throw me in. Well, you can unfollow me, you can block me, you can cancel me, but you are not God. All you have is a bunch of principalities and words. And sometimes your words hurt like a motherfucker. So at first I was crying to myself when I was accepting myself in my restroom. I was it was after a hard session of therapy where he was like, what if you were just you? Is that okay? He was like, do you feel good saying that you're gender fluid? And I was like, I do. I do. I feel very good. And in therapy, it felt great. But then on the way home, I was like, oh my God. I will have to tell family and friends. And I'm thinking about that. And it freaked me out for a while. And then I called my best friend. And I get on the phone with him. And I was like, guess what, best? So I'm gender fluid. I'm with a they them pronoun as well as you can still be a girl. And he was like, okay, and just kept going on with the conversation nothing. I'm tears streaming down my fucking face. I'm losing it. And he's like, okay. I was like, you ain't got nothing crazy to say. You ain't got no. He's like, no. He was like, how are you? Are you okay? He's like, is this what was bothering you? And I'm gonna admit this one. I had some suicidal thoughts, and before I was able to admit this to myself, I had been wrestling with that. And that was one of the other things I was wrestling in therapy. And my therapist was just like, maybe accepting yourself is better than saying unaliving yourself. Maybe that's better. Maybe you existing is a good thing.
Right.
And I think that's sometimes a very hard space to be for a lot of queer people like us. We find ourselves in this really scary precipice of do I even want to be in this world? Does this world deserve me? No, the world never deserves y'all, because y'all are fucking phenomenal. All of you kids out there. And so having my bestie be so calm, the next person I called was my older brother. And he was like, do you think I'm gonna divorce you from the family or some shit? I was like, no, I love you. And they were enough to start for me. That was it. I needed them to know it. My partner was totally fine with it. He had no reaction, which kind of was like, well, there's that. He loves me. He loves me. So I didn't really expect to change.
Shout out to Babe. That's right.
but it's that. Sometimes it was that I had to get over that fear of now I have to live this life, because I want some people to understand sometimes the scariest thing is choosing to live, to fully be yourself,
right,
and be present. There are a lot of folks, when we talk about the straights, there are a lot of straight people and there are a lot of straight presenting queer people and gay folks that do that only out of survival.
Yes.
Like you said, they don't know how to be free like us.
I love that you talked about religion, because that was kind of the beginning of my story. So I grew up in a very religious. My mother was extremely religious. She's still very religious.
Sunday school.
Yes, no,
Solo
we were in church every Sunday as children. Up until I was 17 and I moved out, we were expected to be in church, every Sunday. And I had to let go of a lot of religious indoctrination in order, before I ever knew what the word queer or, gender nonconformity, before I ever knew what those words were, I had to let go of the religious indoctrination because that was so deep that, we would be in church and be hearing homophobic messages from, the pastor and what have you. And, there was a point, I remember this was, probably the summer, I think I was, 15 or something. And I was just like, you know what? I don't believe in heaven or hell. I just don't believe. If I knew it was a good person, but at the same time, I knew that folks would condemn me to hell because I had same-sex desire or attraction. And of course, when you turn in 14, 15, the hormones are just beginning, the light is coming on.
Yeah, moans are moaning.
Raging!
Yeah.
Raging.
And I was just it no longer fit my worldview. The way that I saw the world, the way that I knew myself to be, I just stopped believing in a heaven or hell. And then when I got to college, I did religious study classes. I became an atheist or an anti-theist, and then did research on how Black people even got to know Abrahamic religions in the first place.
Well,
and newsflash, it's a very violent story.
Yeah, Jesus
surprise.
Jesus was given to most cultures at the end of a gun or a sword.
Jesus is a biscuit.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Knowing all of that, when it was easier, it was once I undid the religious indoctrination, everything else kind of just came to me. I was forced out of the closet when I was about 20 by my mother, and it wasn't until I graduated from college and moved to New York when I was 23 that I already had friends on social media who were presenting as gender nonconforming, and I knew that I was queer myself, but I also knew that I could not, or I didn't feel comfortable presenting as such in Kansas City, Missouri. So I was like, I need to get out of here. So I can just be myself. And so the beauty of that is that once I moved to New York, you see queer trans people everywhere. It's so normalized. And then, it's almost as if you can have an opportunity at the life you imagined. The friends that I were with, they were gender nonconforming, trans. So I just started just playing with clothes, and it took so much work, for me to even go to the women's side of the store. I remember the first time I was at the mall and was just so nervous, just looking around.
Have you ever had a woman at a store? I'm coming to help you. Who are you shopping for? And, and you have to answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me. Yeah. With these big burly shoulders.
Damn.
This shit. And they're I'm shopping for me. Oh.
I am the woman.
Right. It's me. It's I. Yes.
Oh, God.
It's I came out to my mom at tour. I was forced out at 20. And when I moved to New York, I fell in love, found a wonderful partner. And she was accepting of that. She was fine with it. But when I would post pictures of me and my, my cute little skirt or my little crop top or my little fishnets or my little, whatever, I would notice that my mom was friends with me and my two brothers on Facebook. So whenever they posted a picture, she would of course like it, be the first comment. Oh, you look so good, son. You look great. You look handsome. You look fantastic. But when I would post a picture, she would never react or respond to my photos. And so, I blocked her. And then
because sometimes you gotta block family.
Yeah,
you should block family.
And then when I got home, I brought it up to her. I just feel like, I just feel like your love comes with stipulation.
Well, then that's not love.
No, and that's what that's what we had to grapple with. Situation. Yes, we had to have a conversation about it, and I had to tell her honestly, I am just being the most true version of myself that I know how to be, and I would hope that you would appreciate that I have that integrity. That I'm not out here lying to people. I'm not in people's church houses or communities trying to live a life that is not mine. And I was I would hope, if anything, if you don't understand, because she told me, she was it's still a journey, I'm still working through, but I was I would hope that you would appreciate that I am living the truest embodiment of myself, and that I'm not lying to people, or that I'm not trying to, present myself as one way while I'm clearly living a totally different life. And I think that was the light bulb for her. And then she was like, okay, well, and then things got a little bit easier, and you have to be open to constantly having conversations. I feel like shame and queer phobia, all those things thrive when you are not willing to talk about it. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to talk or teach or explain anything to anybody. But also what I have found is that when I'm open to having a conversation with folks, and when they understand and get it, it's like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
And it's just really that simple. And so I've had to condition myself to always be willing to have a conversation around gender, like around, sexuality, just as much as I will, yell somebody down about racial politics. I have to be just as vigilant about the other politics, the other intersections that I embody, because that is just who I am.
Something that's a very hot topic now as it pertains to folks that are non-binary and gender non-conforming are pronouns and respect. And I want you all to tell me from your purview, because I believe that it's different for everyone. What does, number one, what is your take on pronouns and how should people respect you in that manner? And then furthermore, once people have your pronouns, because pronouns is such a hot button topic, how serious is that for you? And what does respecting you as a GNC or non-binary person look like from other folks?
For me personally, it's about the intention behind the words. It's behind what are we saying in the conversation when we're discussing my pronouns and how you discuss how I show up. So at a professional setting, there was a moment at a training with everyone at work, and I'm with all these other professionals, and someone addressed me as, like, I could tell they were mistering me on purpose because it made them feel good, right? And I had already said, like earlier in the year, I am gender non-conforming, I'm fluid, so like I prefer if you would use this term professor or just use my last name. Or I was like, the proper term is mix, but I know that y'all ain't gonna get that, and we're not gonna have that long of a conversation. I said, but just to correct it, just use professor and my last name, and that works. Simple. It does. So what was I doing just now about that? I was answering someone's, like before we even get to the problem of you misgendering me,
right.
I think that goes with the individual. How does that individual want to show up authentically, and how do they feel, and what is their relationship you have with that person?
Yes.
So if you were in a close, tight-knit relationship with me, my friends interchangeably use pronouns, but when other people are referencing me, they will correct you and say that they are over there or doing something, especially when they know, let's say if I'm showing up like this, if sis is fully judged, it's a they-them situation, and you know that. And this ain't even a full situation, baby.
Bam.
These two know what a full situation with me looks like.
Yes.
Okay? And when that girl has shown up,
hello.
if you he, him, me, bitch, I don't hear you. We ain't talking.
Yes, because you are not talking to me. Thank you.
The reason about that, like, the reason I was saying is it's about intention. So like someone asked me that, and I said, if I know you're intending to hurt me by using this pronoun because you feel it makes you feel comfortable, I gotta learn all this stuff. If you didn't know me from Adam and I was over there, what would you say? They're over there.
Yeah.
Boom, you just use the they, them pronouns because
it.
you didn't know who the person was. And you do that every single day of your life. Stop and think about that. I want you to, every person who has an issue with pronouns, if you don't know someone,
yes,
and you point to a direction over there that is not in your periphery, you're gonna say they. That's just proper English in our like language as we're talking about that, because you don't know who that person is over there. But regardless of that, if the conversation of pronouns is too hard for you to understand, then I want you to go back to, what is your intention? Do you know this person? Yeah. Do you intend to build a relationship with them? Or are you intending intentionally to try to hurt me?
If you don't know someone's pronouns, ask.
Yeah.
What are your pronouns?
But that's a
and
conversation.
people don't take it, like, generally folks don't take it, don't take it offensively. In fact, there are a lot of queer folks I know are actually happy. They consider it considerate. Like, oh wow, they checked in with me. They asked me, who I was. And that's why I tell folks my pronouns are, I use any and all pronouns with respect and care. So I know.
That's a whole contract. There's the terms and conditions.
Period.
Let's go back to before the video.
Yeah. Terms and conditions.
But I'm so, I'm rowdy, okay? So if I feel like you being like, I know my gender goes across the spectrum, from wherever. Sometimes it's higher mass, sometimes it's high femme, sometimes it's this queer dykey thing in the middle. Like if you see me, if it gives if I look boyish and you call me he, that's cool, that's fine. If she's giving femme and you call me she, I love that. It makes me
yes,
makes me purr.
Yes.
And sometimes on an everyday basis I'm just they. But I feel like I tell people all the time, like the point at which I feel like you're not using care or respect with me and you trying to be funny, I'll get hilarious. I'll get real funny. Woo! Yes. I don't at this point in my life I don't take no disrespect from nobody.
Yeah.
And no shade, I don't mind dying. Like I don't mind. Every time I put on my little skirt and my fishnets when I leave the house, I'm prepared to die. Like because I know some anybody on the street may assault me, may kill me. Like that's the reality that I live with. So I don't fear death. So if I got to fight and die over my piece of pronouns in the street, so be it.
That's really crazy.
That's just my life.
That's
but that
really
is,
crazy.
And I've had family that I've had to correct on this. Like, it's not a lifestyle. This is an identity. This is who I am. This is who I am. And just like I would never disrespect you for any aspect of your identity, I would hope you wouldn't do the same, or I would hope that if you did step on my toes and misgender me, which is pretty hard to do based off how I identify, based off what pronouns I answer to, that is not the same experience for all other queer people or trans people, which is why it's important to ask. And if somebody tells you their pronouns are she and they don't necessarily look like what you would call a she, call them she. Don't call them they, call them she. That's what their pronouns are. But at the same time, I don't mind dying for mine.
I'm going to circle back on that because one, I can tell you still teach because I love when someone circles back just to make sure we reminded you.
Right.
So,
don't play with it. Try Jesus. Try veganism.
Right. Listen.
Don't try me. Don't try me.
But the circle back for me from you was the fact that you said ask. That's one. There's a piece of advice for those of you who don't know how to deal with the pronouns. For me, it's about the intention. And what you just said at the last part was very powerful. I am not going to remember this amazing famous comedian right now because I need their name. But there are a lot of trans individuals and gender non-binary people that are they may not present by the pronoun that they choose to use for themselves, but that has nothing to do with you, right? How I show up, how I dress, how I present, who I identify as has nothing to do with you. And if you ask, that provides us with at least a bridge or a conversation rather than you imposing your worldview or purview on other people.
Because the reality is that cis women are masculine.
Oh, there are so many.
There are tons of cis women who don't, put all the feminine, they don't do that.
Right.
But you still refer to them as she.
Exactly.
And this is why I don't suffer fools with cishet folks, because when people get married and they change their last names, you call them Mrs. whatever their new last name is.
Yeah.
Superstars who go by a stage name. The Weeknd is not that man's real name.
It's not.
But you call him
The Weeknd. Exactly.
So damn it, if I tell you my name is Rhonda and my pronouns are he, damn it, you better refer to me with what the fuck I said, or else I will knock every fucking thing over.
Listen,
right?
I'm knocking all this shit
Yes, not all queer people are passively hoping that you'll accept me. I don't have time for that shit.
Yes.
I will cut up.
That's real. And you know what? I feel like
people
people have to also understand that a lot of it has to do with energies as well. Yeah. Because as a cis gay male who came up in ballroom,
work,
I have not been anybody's he in depending on the circle, the situation.
Very
that. You know, and that's another thing that I had a personal struggle with, and ballroom liberated me from that. And the way that both of you all led with, hey, it's really about the intention, because there are a plethora of people that can come up to me and call me girl.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But your intention, and sometimes it's your fucking tone. Watch your tone. You know, some people can get away with that. And then also I realized that energetically, I am a very warm person. And most people correlate warmth, safety, things of that nature with femininity.
Energy.
A lot of y'all, and I say this a lot, and I'm going to keep saying this, a lot of y'all disrespect the feminine.
They do.
Because you see it as weak.
Yes.
And I really, we're not going to get into it today because we will be here all night.
Oh.
But
we not, because I'm ready.
We will not, because I'm going to send this off to my editor and he's going to be like, child, this is 3 episodes, whatever. But a lot of y'all disrespect the feminine. I want you all to take this little nugget before we get into like a closing. The feminine is nowhere near weak. And you all crave it and you want it so much that you can't. Sometimes you kind of hate it and you try to like bash it because it's too strong and it's too bright. And I want y'all to change that.
Like people in gender is like essence, you know.
Yes.
Like it's
Your
not,
voice.
I don't have to wear any like
your
feminine.
walk.
Yeah, like it's not. It's just the way that you approach the world. And people can see that and feel that, and it doesn't necessarily have to show up in like dress or, you know, clothes or makeup or you know, whatever else we use to. That's just the drag that we put on. But I also feel like cis gay men should constantly be checking themselves for misogyny and trans antagonism and all those things. And I also feel like, you know, if you are a cis man, gay or straight, who absolutely reviles, you know, at the thought or being called girl or what have you, I think you also need to check your internalized
Femphobia.
yes, you need to
Yes.
check your patriarchy. You need to check, you know, the ways in which like your misogyny, because if being just inherently seen as a girl or something feminine is derogatory to you, then that means that you see that as a bad thing or as
Yes.
a weak thing or as something not to be. Because, you know, on one hand, you know, yes, sure, we should respect everybody's pronouns, I guess, including cis men, but also at the same time, like, y'all have so much fucking power. What difference does it make if somebody calls you girl? Like, get the fuck over it. Like you know, you will, because gay men perpetuate femphobia. And so,
do.
like, they will see somebody else that is more femme to them and like, oh, that's my sister, that's cis, whatever. But like the only men that you consider to be desirable or options for romance or options for sex or options for what have you have to be more masculine than you. And let me tell y'all something. Y'all are all faggots. That's just it. You know, some of y'all just wear the little boy hat a little better, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, y'all are all sissies. And if you constantly, you know, if you too busy, you know, because somebody is too femme for you, not willing to consider them as a viable like life partner, a lot of y'all gonna die alone.
But they don't want to talk about that.
Listen,
and that's just it. Like, you need to come to terms with loving the femininity within yourself, because we're humans,
Yes.
right? We're humans. So within every human, there is a masculine dynamic and a feminine dynamic. Like, and it just is what it is. And what we need to grow to learn is to accept the way those things show up within every individual human. Because, you know, a lot of women don't want some hard, like rough, gruff, dominating masculine man. A lot of women, cis-het women, enjoy like men with some femininity because they feel safer. They feel
which is
softer.
why
Like, you
they
know.
end up, you know, with closeted folks in the church. But that's another conversation altogether as well.
wow.
So this is what we're gonna do, because
Not all.
not all, but you know, I like to shake the table a little bit. So listen, whew, we have so much more to cover, but I am going to ask you all to come back so we can do this again.
I would.
Because, baby, we have to have a second part of this conversation, because
Yeah.
I want to get into desirability politics.
Oh, child.
I want to get into sexuality. I want to get into more.
Gender and sexuality are
two
Two
things.
different
Hello.
Totally different things.
So
Blouses exist, y'all.
li-
Child. Yes.
so
There's nothing wrong with them, Tom.
nothing wrong with it. So some of y'all done had them already. You just didn't know. But that's another story altogether. Hello. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna end this one here, but we're gonna come back with a part 2 because there is more to say. I want to thank you all for coming here and sharing this moment with me and sharing your knowledge. I love you all so very much. Listen, absolutely, any and every time. Yo, always remember, y'all, the possibilities in these conversations are endless, but the focus should always be intentional. All right? We will holler at y'all later.
Yeah.
Peace.